Welcome to Zero Authority. We are freeholders. We are a community of hodlers covering topics in the Stacks ecosystem and the broader crypto world. This is our Built on Stacks, secured by Bitcoin series, where we talk to the builders who are dedicated to creating the next generation of permissionless, open source, and decentralized applications on Bitcoin.
What if loans could repay themselves? Arkadiko is built on stacks and secured by Bitcoin. Arkadiko is a decentralized, non-custodial liquidity protocol where users can collateralize their assets and mint a stablecoin called USDA. This enables depositors to gain increased liquidity in the form of a soft-pegged US dollar stablecoin, while maintaining original asset exposure. Utilizing yield from proof of transfer, an STX collateralized vault that mints USDA creates a self-paying loan. Similar to Maker DAO, Arkadiko increases the capital efficiency of the STX asset by enabling it to be used in the collateralized debt position. The potential to use Bitcoin as a collateral asset in Clarity smart contracts on stacks could position Arkadiko as key infrastructure in the layered future of Bitcoin.
The team has been hard at work building the first version of the Web3 decentralized application. Mainnet will launch sometime in October. There is a bug bounty in progress, and if you would like more information, please go to arkadiko.finance. The security audit is currently in progress, and once the security experts conclude and finalize the report, the team will release the complete report. Findings are being remediated immediately upon discovery and confirmation. Philip, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining Zero Authority. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why did you decide to build on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, as you would probably agree, is the hardest and most sound money that was ever invented. I believe that to protect and to protect something of wealth, some kind of energy has to be expended. So I do think proof of work is the best consensus mechanism out there, especially comparing to other systems such as proof of stake. Now, assume that you believe that and you would agree with that. It's definitely our belief. Then you would also say that the next set of financial services and products, which most likely are going to be decentralized, should be built on top of Bitcoin. And that's the main premise for Arkadiko and for us as a team to have started building Arkadiko on top of Bitcoin. So secured by Bitcoin with stacks.
You guys just recently had a new branding and a really cool, slick logo. Can you tell us about the name of Arkadiko, where it came from, how you think about the design of the brand and the logo, and just the organization and the protocol?
Be happy to. So the name, some people find it really hard to pronounce, by the way. They're like, how do I pronounce it? Is it Arkadiko or Arkadiko? And Arkadiko is in fact correct. So you had it right from the bat, which I appreciate. But so look, my last company that I built, we started at about eight years ago, and that was a SaaS company. We sold that company and the whole brand was changed. They changed the whole product and everything really was changed. And while financially that was a really great exit for us as founders, a lot has happened that felt a little bit sour as an aftertaste. And so when I started building on Bitcoin, on stacks, I thought to myself, what is my legacy? What do I want to be known for? And I wanted to build something that is built to last, something trustless, something that inspires trust, something with longevity. And so if you think of the oldest civilizations, you might think of the Roman Empire, you might think of the Greeks, and I really identify with Greek mythology, and everything that has been happening in Greece. These people, they go way back. Arguably, they were one of the first, modern civilizations. And so Arkadiko is the oldest bridge that is still in use today. So it's an arc bridge in the area that is also called Arkadiko. And It is about approximately, because it's hard to say exactly, but it's about 5,000 years old. So 3,000 before Christ, it was approximately built. And so it is still in use today. So if something like Arkadiko, that bridge, does not inspire trust and longevity, I wouldn't know what else. But anyway, so that's where the name comes from. I really like the story and the metaphor. And so we adopted that to build a set of financial services, starting with you know, a stable coin, giving people financial inclusion on Bitcoin. So yes, we are built to last through the Arkadiko brand.
That's so fascinating. This bridge has been there 5,000 years. I remember when I asked you that question, and it was crazy because I just thought, oh, or you and the co-founder combined some names and then came up with Arkadiko.
It definitely exists. Just Google it and you'll see I'm not lying.
As you're building the team, is the ethos of Arkadiko and the longevity, is that something that you think of as you build this protocol and the team and your philosophies?
Yeah, so definitely. Culture is important when you're building a team. So people have to identify with this longevity strategy. They have to identify with Bitcoin. They obviously have to believe in, else it's going to be hard, you know, contributing to Arkadiko and then to the services that we provide. So that's really the first thing that I ask people and that I try to get out of people when I talk to them. For me, it's also important that we work autonomously. You know, every person on their own should know what their responsibilities are and what they are contributing to. Because ultimately, and I said it before, we want to enable people, you know, in terms of financial inclusion. We want to make it easier to borrow against their own assets. So definitely really, really important in terms of culture, in terms of building the team, that people believe in our mission and that they want to build or contribute to something that will, you know, last hopefully beyond, you know, when they're not alive anymore. And that's really my goal as well. So it, as an extent, it should stretch to the team goal.
Building on Bitcoin, building on stacks, you could have chosen any other protocol. What about stacks? What about building on Bitcoin, and why this problem?
Yeah, so stacks specifically, I already told you, I guess, that Bitcoin is the most, you know, sound money that we know. And in a distant second place, you've got something like gold, which is the analog version almost of Bitcoin. But why stacks? So if you believe that Bitcoin is sound money, the hardest money, then I went looking for solutions that allow me to build on top of Bitcoin. And for me today, there are only 3 feasible and practical solutions where stacks is really easily the winner. And so for, you know, for clarity, no pun intended, but for transparency purposes, I'll quickly cover all 3 of them. So let's say first, the most simple one between quotes is Bitcoin native, Bitcoin script, the scripting language inside of Bitcoin blockchain, which is not super expressive, it's not really flexible, but allows you to build things through, you know, discrete log contracts, maybe simple oracles. You have the Lightning Network, which is amazing, by the way, as a layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. But ultimately, it was not flexible enough for us as a team to natively build on top of Bitcoin. And so that was not really an option. And then I think there's 2 feasible options in terms of sidechains, and sidechains are things like Rootstock, which follows a merge mining model. And then you have something like Stacks. And for me, the consensus algorithm and the way Stacks as a layer 1 blockchain is built was really, really intriguing, and because of 2 reasons. First of all, as probably everyone knows, Stacks creates a hash of its block and settles on Bitcoin. So it uses Bitcoin as a settlement layer, a lot like Lightning, which, you know, would be when you close your Lightning channel, all those transactions, they get settled on the layer 1 Bitcoin blockchain. The same way Stacks just uses Bitcoin as a settlement layer. Not only that, but second, and that was the really most important part, is its consensus mechanism called proof of transfer, POX. So if I refer to POX, it's proof of transfer. So POX, it allows you to earn a yield in Bitcoin. Probably, again, everyone knows that. But what not everyone knows is that you can reuse and repurpose POX in your own protocols, in your own applications, in your own algorithms, whatever it is. So it becomes this building block that gets deeply ingrained, deeply incorporated into Arkadiko. And really that's where everything starts off. And I look at stacks as another layer in the infrastructure. So you have Bitcoin on the lowest level. On top, you could visualize it, on top you have stacks. On top of that you have Arkadiko, and in stacks you have POX on that second layer. Third layer is Arkadiko, and we are building that third layer, which is the infrastructure. We want to provide the liquidity to everyone who wants to use a stablecoin, who is in need of liquidity generally when using the Stacks blockchain. And so just like we have built that infrastructure, we will enable other teams, protocols, developers to build on top of fourth layer on top of Arkadiko to repurpose our stablecoin and to use it in novel ways that we initially had not even envisioned. So I really like the layered approach, and the choice for Stacks as a blockchain because of those reasons was really easy.
How does the future look for Stacks, for Arkadiko? How does it look for other different decentralized applications using the liquidity of Arkadiko?
Look, the future is really bright. So we have this infrastructure almost in place. We're going to be launching soon. And from the first day, every other single protocol developer can build other applications. So that is amazing. And I'm thinking of applications such as flash loans, which is a way to take a loan and in the same block, so in the same, let's call it 10 minutes, you already pay back that loan. But in the meantime, a lot of transactions can happen. That could be enabled through our stablecoin. Another thing could be lending borrowing. There are literally endless possibilities. And I often speak to protocol developers when they need some feedback. So I'm aware of, another developers that's trying to build an investment through Stacks, through our stablecoin. So what we really want to do is support the developer community, and as a team, as the Arkadiko team, we're always happy to jump on calls, and we've been super excited not only to see what they want to build on Arkadiko itself, in terms of us being an infrastructure building block, but also, as you already mentioned, city coins such as Miami, which is POX Lite, proof of transfer Lite, but we just use proof of transfer itself in Arkadiko.
So many possibilities that are just endless that we don't know today. And what I think of is what is going to be blockchain native. We're starting to see some of those decentralized applications. I think early on 2017, we didn't even do anything with blockchain really. It was just sending assets, crypto assets here and there to wallets and sending them back, getting them off exchanges. And now we're starting to see, okay, and I think Boombox is one of the greatest examples of blockchain native. Okay, now that you have an NFT that you can collateralize, then you can do that on top of proof of transfer or POX. That's something that's blockchain native that you can't do with centralized systems.
Correct. Yes, there's literally endless possibilities in terms of composability, and that's why it's so interesting that every one of those components are as small as possible. They might look very abstract from the outside, but if you just start reusing them, you create these initiatives and these products really that me, you, or anyone else did not envision. So like everyone's brain works different, right? So that's why it's so amazing. It's literally these Legos. If I give you a box of Lego and I get a box of Lego and we each put ourselves in a room for 2 hours, I'm gonna come out with a very different construction that you will come out with. And that's so amazing. The same way you have this composability on blockchains.
That is amazing. I think something else too that I don't think people give Stacks enough credit is with the Gaia storage and being able to have decentralized identities and protect your information. That's going to be another narrative in crypto, and I think it's probably 5 years away because people don't understand the power. I was showing a friend how to log into Web3 because you'll have a wallet, you'll have your digital identities. there are no more username and passwords. That's going to be legacy tech. And the way I see it is kind of like where we went from the legacy systems, because I've been in IT security for a long time, in cybersecurity, and a lot of the monolithic systems, you'd have users and on-prem, but now you kind of went into the 2010s with these microservices. And so it's kind of like the same concept. Everyone was developing L1 layer solutions and blockchain. And now that you have the L2s and decentralized apps and the protocols, you kind of get these microservices that can connect, like you said, like Legos. And that also leads me to this other question about, is this the first time that we're going to see self-repaying loans for Arkadiko? I think that's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, so it is one of the first protocols that does launch it. There are some early initiatives on other blockchains, but the way we do it, and through Bitcoin, which is the scarcest asset on earth, it is very novel and it's the first one, correct? Yeah, and so the way these self-repaying loans work is you have Arkadiko Vault. And a vault is a very simple concept. It's literally what you could have at home. You put or deposit some Stacks tokens in them, and against that position, against your own assets, you can borrow and mint our stablecoin called USDA. But at the same time, your assets, or your collateral, as we sometimes say, will be used in proof of transfer for you, and you are the recipient of that yield. You will receive that yield. And the beauty of it is, this way, we make your Stacks tokens more capital efficient, because you're borrowing against your Stacks tokens without giving up the yield. So the yield is still yours. We don't take that. We just take a small cut, about 1 to 2%. These rates are dynamic, by the way. They are voted upon in governance, because we are governed by a DAO. There's no central authority that chooses what are the interest rates. But so we are launching with 1% net yield, meaning if your proof of transfer earns a yield of 10%, you get 9% and the protocol takes 1%. So you could leverage yourself a lot by losing a tiny fraction of the yield. And that's how we make your Stacks tokens and really more of your assets. Think of Bitcoin in the future when we add it as a collateral type. We will make all of those things more capital efficient.
And how are you going to start up as a DAO? Or have you thought about how do we have the DECO tokens and build the DAO on this protocol? And where do we do that? And how do we go about it?
Yeah, look, there's a few things to consider when you speak about the DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, for people who don't know the abbreviation DAO. But so largely there is indeed a governance token that is called DECO in our system that can be used to vote for new governance proposals. But the question is, what can be voted upon? And the answer to that is literally everything going forward. We might start not completely decentralized, but our path to decentralization will be set out as soon as we launch. So an example of that would be, I talked about the borrowing rate, so the interest rates. Imagine they're 1 to 2% today, net borrowing, which it's not extreme, it's not extremely high, but say for whatever reason we need to make them higher or lower. Me, Philip, as you know, as a stakeholder, let's call myself in the protocol, I cannot just change the interest rate. I'm not a bank. I don't run Arkadiko. I help contribute to it. I help develop it. I maybe help market it. I talk about it. But ultimately, I'm not the decision maker about those, what I call a risk parameter. So a user might say, look, I'm not happy about those interest rates. I want to lower them to 0.5%, or maybe for whatever reason, they want to go up to 3%. They can launch a governance vote, and people who hold our governance token, DECO, they can vote for or against that governance proposal that went out. That's one example. What I find really interesting is another example that I'm going to give you going forward. So there's 100 million tokens in the whole DECO governance treasury. 50% of those go to the community through liquidity mining. Think of it as staking. But about 21% is part of the DAO treasury. And I told you that we are going from something relatively, let's call it relatively centralized to be fair, to completely decentralized. So going forward, when a material expense needs to happen, me or someone else of the core team will not have ownership of any significant expense that needs to happen. Say we need to invest $3 million in ecosystem in developers. We want to invest in developers, using our stablecoin. What we would do is we launch a governance vote. We write up this proposal, which could be half a page long, it could be 10 pages long, but it will be a proposal that says we need $3 million in DECO tokens to invest there, and there. Please vote on this. You have the next 10 days to vote on it. And everyone who has those governance tokens, those DECO, can vote for or against that. If you're a good actor, obviously you would vote for such a proposal. But some people might not agree with it and they could vote against it. So ultimately it won't be up to us, us as a contributor, as a core team. It will be up to the community to govern and regulate the platform and decide together as a community how it should function. So really excited about that.
I think the narrative and the storytelling around DAOs are going to, by the end of this decade, I think most people, our generation, and especially younger, will want to work for a DAO because it is built for the digital age. Do you see that people can contribute in ways to the Arkadiko DAO and just be able to contribute, but also work on other projects that they love, and eventually, if you have enough contributions, you can make a living from this? Definitely,
completely agree. And I think work won't be defined as an employer-employee relationship going forward. If you contribute to our DAO, we will compensate you in the form of our DECO token, depending on how large your contribution was or is on an ongoing basis. So you as a person or me, obviously I'm committed full-time almost to Arkadiko, but imagine I was contributing to several DAOs. That could easily be, my full-time job. I contribute 5 hours a day to Arkadiko, tomorrow maybe to something else. And that will redefine, like I said, that whole employer-employee relationship. People will be more autonomous. They will be contributing to where their passion is, to where their belief system lies. And so I'm super excited about it. And we hope, to have a lot of those contributors in the next few years coming on board on Arkadiko. No, correct. So there's no ICO. There's no significant pre-mine. There are 100 million tokens to be emitted over the next 5 years. Everyone starts at zero, including us. We have built, for the past year, we've been building this, but we also start at zero governance tokens. So if we want to, get ownership of such tokens, we have to participate in the same liquidity mining as any other user. Very important for us. So 50 million of the tokens will be, emitted and rewarded to our ecosystem. Now, having said that, there is 21% of the token supply reserved for the core team. So for core contributors, people like myself and my other team members, we get from that bucket of that 21%, but there is a very long vesting schedule. Well, very long, that's debatable, but a long vesting schedule of about 4 years with a 6-month cliff. So we cannot do any rug pulls. We don't do any pre-mining, where we can't even if I wanted to sell something, which why would I do that even on day one? If you have a long-term vision, you'd be an idiot to do that. But imagine we cannot, because all these tokens are locked and they have to be vested. So why am I saying this? Well, if you set out to build a decentralized protocol, but you centralize all, your tokens, what's the point of coming out as a decentralized protocol? But then it's centralized by definition, really. So it is important for us, those 50 million tokens that go to the community, that they get spread. They won't get spread evenly. That's the harsh reality. Someone who has more capital today will also be able to take more risk and maybe contribute more to something like Arkadiko. But everyone will have to commit a part of their capital to participate in a liquidity mining program. But whether that's small or big, the returns will be there and they will be lucrative. I can talk a bit more about that, but really the ethos of this, we want to spread a large part of our token supply to those ecosystem participants and not say, look, this is ours. No, that's not why we started this.
And the one of the main drivers when I look for a project to invest in, or if I can't get if I can't participate in a DAO and I want to take my hard-earned money and put into this protocol, one of the things is this decentralized? Do the founders hold all of the tokens? Well, no, for Arkadiko. And then is there that vesting schedule? Do the founders have all of the tokens from day one? Can they just turn all of those tokens into STX and then kind of do a rug pull? And then 3.2 is the ethos of the team, do they believe in permissionless, censorship resistant, and building on open source systems? And I also think too, based on, it's called the reward sinks, and you have the emission weights and the pairings. Can you give us like more information on how that works too as well? And then tell us about when you stake your DECO, you get the stake DECO token.
Correct. Yeah. So our emission schedule is based on a pooling mechanism. And we start with 4 pools at launch. And I'll go over each of them. So there's single asset DECO staking. I'll go over the pools first. So there's single asset DECO staking. There is DECO USDA staking. There's DECO Stacks staking. And there's Stacks USDA staking. And this might sound a bit confusing, so let me go over each one of them. So first, the single asset DECO staking. And this whole group, by the way, is called liquidity mining, because you provide liquidity to the protocol. So you take a risk and you get something back in rewards. And so the first one, single asset DECO staking, you would provide your DECO liquidity into the DECO pool and get STDECO, stake DECO back. And stake DECO, today, its single purpose is to participate in governance. So when a governance vote gets launched, you can vote with your DECO tokens or with your stake DECO tokens. Either works. But the cool thing about this is, again, think of the composability. Stake DECO, it might be accepted in the future somewhere else in the lending borrowing protocol or wherever as collateral. So other ecosystem stakeholders such as protocols can simply integrate our token into theirs if they deem this as something important. So that's a single asset DECO staking pool. Simply said, you stake your DECO to get more DECO. Now, in my opinion, what is more interesting rather than the single asset DECO is those 3 other pools, and we call them LP pools, liquidity provider pools. Since I spoke a bit about our stablecoin, we have a stablecoin and it works as a self-repaying loan. But the second aspect of our platform is a swap. When I refer to Arkadiko, I refer to it not simply as a stablecoin, but as a set of DeFi, of financial services, providing liquidity. So that's not just a stablecoin, but it's also a swap. You can swap tokens, and you can swap USDA for DECO. You can swap stacks for USDA. You can swap stacks for DECO or DECO for stacks. So there's 3 important pairs that we're launching with those 3: DECO stacks, DECO USDA, and stacks USDA. And when a participant in the protocol, in the Arkadiko protocol, puts liquidity into the swap, because it works according to liquidity pool. So I put liquidity in a pool, and you can trade, against that pool. It's some kind of market making function, let's say, that the pool executes. So when I, as a participant, provide liquidity, I get something back that is called an LP token. As an example, let's say I'm providing liquidity on stacks USDA. So we are trading stacks for our stablecoin or the other way around. If I provide liquidity for that, I get an LP token, and that LP token can be staked in the LP pool. And again, if you stake that, there's 2 things that happen. You get DECO, you get rewarded in the liquidity mining program, but additionally, for providing liquidity in the Stacks USDA pool, you also get 30 basis points, that's 0.3%, so 30 basis points of each trade that is being made. So it's this kind of reward because you are putting up your liquidity or capital to be rewarded, both whenever a trade happens and in the pools, in the form of a liquidity mining program. And so when I refer to rewards as APRs or APYs, they look kind of high, but it is simply to incentivize people to participate early in our protocol in those 4 pools.
One thing that from the first, I don't know if it's version, I don't know what version, but when I first looked at the website, you had the stablecoin and you were going to do the DECO, and at some point you guys added the swaps on too, and I think this is going to be the DeFi platform that is going to be one of the initial ones built on Bitcoin powered by Stacks. And can you talk more about that? And there was some recent announcements and innovations with the CATAMARAN swaps too. I don't know if you thought about that or just been thinking about how you do swaps on DECO, and does it play into the bigger role of Stacks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Catamaran swaps, they are essentially native Bitcoin swaps. So you're swapping a token on Stacks for Bitcoin. At launch, so we are launching, by the way, in Q4. Tentative date would be end of October. But so at launch, we won't natively enable those Catamaran swaps just because they're a very recent innovation. It's maybe a month old right now when we're talking about this, end of August 2021. So it's very early days to be launching something like that on mainnet, because look, there's a difference between proving something in a proof of concept and us launching that as something that we want to take mainstream. And while the Catamaran swaps, they work, I have personally not figured out yet, how to scale those and how to integrate those in a structurally sound and consistent way inside of Arkadiko. But I am super excited about the Catamaran swaps, because if we can enable those, we can seamlessly enable cross-chain transactions. And quite frankly, with the Bitcoin blockchain, the one that matters most. So if I ask you, do you want to swap Bitcoin against any token? Your answer might be yes, but we need to make that as frictionless as possible. And then, so with Arkadiko and the Catamaran swaps, we are not there yet today, but I believe we will be, in the near future, but not at mainnet launch. So that's the Catamaran swaps. Now we have opted for an alternative, because if you mint our stablecoin, you need to be able to trade our stablecoin against something or reuse it in another protocol. And so that's why we launched the swap as well. And the swap, yes, as I said, it will go live together with the stablecoin. So all of your capital will be tradable from day one.
Arkadiko's been active on Twitter, answering many questions. So there's no pre-mine, there is no pre-launch. Like you said, you and the team, you guys all have on day one the same information as the rest of the community in Stacks and crypto. As far as getting the security audit done, how's that process been? I don't think there's enough coverage on security audits, the process, how to go through one, how to think about it, and then when you get the findings and the reports, how do you decide which action items do we make sure to remediate as a part of our strategy, and then our ongoing remediation strategy? Or you guys also have the bug bounty, so if anyone is interested, they can go out to GitHub and find that, and we'll make sure to add the links as well. Look,
we are the first really big DeFi project to launch very soon, within the next 2 months, on Stacks. And so when we set out to build this, one of our core values has always been, as I explained, longevity, trust, but also transparency. And if we want to be transparent, we want to be transparent, and we don't want to hide anything. And that includes having due diligence in the form of a security audit, and we want to report those findings. And so when we set out to do a security audit, it was important for us that we found a partner that we could work closely with. And luckily we have found that, and we'll be reporting the name and then the security odds and the findings very soon, probably before mainnet launch, because I want people to see that the system is safe, but that there could also be vulnerabilities in it. And because as an early participant, you are taking a risk, you are putting your hard-earned capital at risk, but you will also be rewarded for it. But that does not mean that everything will be, blue skies and sunshine every day. And so I want to show those users, look, we've gone through this rigorous process of doing the security audit, of working with a partner that works very closely with us, and here are the findings. And that will happen, as I said, very soon. Now, working closely with this partner has one big advantage, and that is he reports the issues that he found immediately upon discovery. So his team, there's a few people doing the security audit for us. We have this contact person, and they just show us, look, this is wrong, that is wrong. And as I speak, we already, we resolved, I actually did that today as a contributor. I resolved one critical vulnerability. So really happy about how that collaboration is going. If you want to see the vulnerability, by the way, it's just online on GitHub, it's open source. You could go to it right now and see, oh, this is what was wrong, this is what was found, and this is how they fixed it. And anyone can see this. Anyone who can read code can even understand how we fixed it. So very important for us to be these actors of good faith and get the trust from the community, because if we're going to be building this infrastructure and these building blocks, they have to be structurally sound, they have to be secure. And I believe we can do that, but that's a long process, and that's why our launch is still 2 months away. While technically the product is ready, we want to test it a bit more on security, and that's what we're going through right now.
How was the Stacks Accelerator? It was the first edition of the Stacks Accelerator, and when I first saw it, I thought, this is fascinating, because it reminded me of early Y Combinator days, and we all know that those first projects that went into Y Combinator, they came out on the other end and they were ready for prime time. And tell us about the experience. Tell us about going through that. I know you guys are preparing for demo day as well. Tell me about the excitement there.
Yeah, correct. Look, we are super excited. When we first spoke to Trevor, you could see that he was in it to build something also that would boost the ecosystem, that would help each team. And then that's exactly what has happened. We have set up collaborations with other teams. We've gotten intros for people who could provide liquidity. They gave us feedback on our go-to-market plan. We, collaboratively thought about how we can improve DeFi on Stacks, but also DeFi as a whole. So it's been really great. Really thankful and appreciative of this whole experience. And, we're one of the 25 teams. There's a lot of amazing stuff coming out. I think all teams are publicly known, but you can check them out. I think it's stacks.ac/teams, but likely you can link to it in the show notes. But very, very great experience. And as you say, we're now gearing up for demo day, which should happen somewhere in September. The purpose of that is raising capital if you need it. Now we no longer need that, but more on that maybe later. Can't really give too much details on that, but the purpose of us getting access to capital was to have that liquidity for ecosystem participants. Because if you launch an exchange like a swap, which we are doing, you need a good amount of liquidity. Me with my $1,000, if I post liquidity, that's great, and I will earn those 30 basis points per trade. But that's not going to help the ecosystem as a whole. Well, me in isolation, if you get 1 million people that each post $1,000, obviously that will help, and that's what we needed, and that's what we got from a few actors who can help us in terms of liquidity. They will post it, and they will help people like myself and others that when we want to do a trade, that the slippage will be low enough so that I won't lose too much money on an individual trade when I execute it. And so that's why we needed those funds and those capital partners. And that's what we also found through the Stacks Accelerator, which, like I said, great experience.
Yeah, and me adding my $1,000 too is probably not going to make a difference if there's only a handful of people, right? So you have to have liquidity.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean to diminish anyone with $100, $200. It's more like for you personally, it will be a big benefit because you're getting those 30 basis points. But if I execute a trade of $10,000, but there's only $2,000 in liquidity, it's not even possible to buy 10,000 worth of, $10,000 worth of tokens. So that's why you need millions in liquidity to make sure the slippage is small enough. Slippage is how much, your price execution deviates from what the pool can execute. And so that's a spread, essentially. So that slippage has to be very low in order for you not to feel screwed for after the trade has happened, if you understand what I'm saying. And that's why we need those millions. But everyone with $100 or $1,000 is obviously welcome. That's just a little caveat. So we will have slippage of around 0.3, 0.4%, which is what we aimed for, which is standard, to the slippage of other decentralized exchanges in the industry. So yeah, I feel quite confident with the liquidity providers that we have today that we will be able to serve the ecosystem.
Short form journaling and
Sigle. Right.
Have you seen their site that they put out for stxstats.co?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Have you thought about doing something similar for Arkadiko?
That's a great question. One I haven't heard often. So again, transparency. Talking about transparency, it's important to see which vaults are open, how big the median or average vault is, which vaults are at risk, analytics around our system. And this is probably not something that we as the core protocol developers will do from day one, but I would love to see an ecosystem initiative, that parses through our transactions and that visualizes them in a novel or in an exciting way. So that's something that I would get very excited about. And this could be one of those hackathon initiatives that we do. We could say the team that implements this gets this amount of deco because they contribute actively, to the ecosystem and to the DAO, which is one of those aspects that we talked about before.
Thanks for watching our short series, built on stacks, secured by Bitcoin. Thank you, Philip, for taking time to speak with us and let more people learn about future opportunities to use the protocol to earn yield and mint USDA stablecoins. Thanks to Freehold and Trevor and the Stacks Accelerator. For more information, please go to arkadiko.finance and follow them on Twitter and join their Discord. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Remember why you started.